Good afternoon. Yes. So, good afternoon. I am Jamesia Jonay, the wealth creator. I show people how to use other people's money to pay their mortgage, create cash flow, and generate generational wealth. I have with me today a great friend, Nick Cooper. I don't even remember how many years ago we met. I know I've known Nick at
It's
least
been a minute.
6 years now, maybe
It's been a minute.
years. He attended one of my first wealth conferences and went from being an attendee to a speaker. Nick has a wealth of information and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to group economics, business, finance. Um, Nick Cooper has done amazing things, and not saying it in that way with only a high school. Uh-oh. Oh, no, I got some feedback. Let me fix it. Took care of that. Okay. Gotta love technology. Um, Showing people how you can become an executive, land a job, just so many things
I know, right?
has done, leading by example though, right? Doing it himself and then showing others. But today specifically, we're going to talk about real estate investing. So Nick had the pleasure of, and I'll let him share some of his background. I won't give it all away. So Nick started off doing some wholesaling. I won't say started off. A couple years ago, Nick was doing wholesaling and he transitioned to the Airbnb space. And before this whole COVID-19 impacted the economy, Nick had already pivoted his business. So he's going to kind of speak to how he started off in Airbnb, what made him pivot, things that he was aware of that helped him to pivot his business. And some people may be thinking right now, Airbnbs are struggling. However, Nick's business is actually thriving. So thank you, Nick, for joining us. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you for having me on today, especially when you hit me up. I'm like, wait a minute, darn it, I got to get ready for this tomorrow. Like, let me get ready. But yeah, like she said, I've done quite a few things, and I've like switched up gears quite a bit because you have to be able to learn how to adapt to the market a lot. And a lot of us basically we end up, failing because we try to stick with the same thing. So the one thing I've learned is to be fluid and also learn to flow with the market, adapt. So like you said, I started off, one of the first businesses I started off was a career consulting company. I decided that was too much for me. But then I ended up going into banking, and it was there where I got to see behind the scenes of exactly how our financial markets work. And I learned a lot of stuff that you don't learn in school. So I realized that, wait a minute, I got to learn some of this stuff. Well, I got to learn a lot of this stuff, and I got to take it back to my community because ain't nobody teaching us this stuff. So one of the things that I learned and that I posted and plastered all over social media is I'm like, in 2020, there's going to be a crash. There's going to be a crash. I did not know this coronavirus or this COVID-19 was going to happen, but we were predicting that there would be something that would trigger the market. We just didn't know what it was, but we knew it was going to happen. So it was at that moment that I started preparing myself. And in May of 2018, that's when I decided to get into real estate investing full time. And I started basically doing wholesaling. And from that point up until, I would say about October of 2018, I did 19 deals. So I'm not going to say exactly how I did all those deals because some of my banking folks may be watching or they may end up seeing this. So, but I decided it was, after that point, I made so much that I wanted to leave the bank because I realized that, like, there's a lot of bureaucracy going on. And when it comes to, sponsoring people or, giving grants or anything like that, even though I was one of those frontline people that would bring people in and that would recommend people, you had to go through 5 extra levels just to basically get it approved. But if it was somebody that was high up, like a CEO, and it was one of their buddies. They asked for some money, they gave it just like that. So I got tired of that, and I'm like, you know what? I want to start doing this stuff for myself. So they started doing the wholesaling. Then the market with that started changing. It started drying up a little bit, even though there's a lot of people out there that are successful at it. But it wasn't until January of 2000 and was it 2019? Was it January? Yeah, January 2019. I ended up getting my first Airbnb property, and that was by accident. It was by accident because it was one of my friend's mother's house, and she decided that she didn't want to stay there anymore because she lived somewhere else. So I ended up getting that place, and I realized, wait a minute, Super Bowl is coming up. It was down in Atlanta, but technically out in Fairburn, Georgia. And I decided, you know what, let me throw this up on Airbnb. And that was mainly because like people downtown, you know, Atlanta and the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they were throwing their property on there for like $5,000 a night. So I'm like, holy crap, like let me throw mine on there. But I'm gonna throw mine on there for like $2,100 a night because it was like 40 minutes outside of the city. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute, nobody's gonna want to catch an Uber all the way or pay for an Uber to go back and forth between downtown and the house. So I'll just go ahead and provide car service. So that actually did good. It got booked for 5 days, which was great. And it was not until, just to let everybody know, I left the bank in November of 2018. So I had to go. I had to go. That was because a lot of executives quit because they knew exactly what was getting ready to come. But it was not until June of, it was June of 2019 that I decided that I was going to look more to Airbnb. And by the end of that month, I was down in Atlanta, and I just said, let me just try an experiment. And I created an ad, and I posted it on Craigslist. And probably within like 30 minutes, I was getting phone calls from landlords and property owners. So all I said is I basically, looking for corporate rentals. And by the end of that day, I got hit up by at least 30 people. So it's been absolutely nuts since then. And that's based, I started out doing rental arbitrage. And rental arbitrage, for those who don't know, it's where you rent the property under your LLC or your corporation. And all that is basically, it's just like you actually renting a property yourself. So you got a lease, you still got to pay the utilities, you still got to pay for all the other expenses that come along with the property. And then after you pay all those expenses, whatever is left over is your profit. So of course, normally it costs about $2,500 to $5,000 just to get started doing rental arbitrage. But right now, rental arbitrage sucks. And the main reason why is because hardly anybody is traveling. So there's a lot of people in Airbnb that did rental arbitrage. And I know people that have over 100 properties and they've had to file bankruptcy simply because they can't pay the rent. Nobody's actually moving or nobody's actually flying. So after my third property, yeah.
Question for you. So with rental arbitrage, because you're doing a corporate rental, and usually with corporate rentals, the corporation has different executives that'll be potentially coming in and out. That helps make it easier to then kind of sublease to Airbnb or allow for different renters to come in. Is that the thought process behind that?
It's a little bit different. Hold on for a second. So my lighting is getting low.
Okay.
All right, it's a little bit better. So with corporate rentals, it's a little bit different. Normally, like say for instance, you're a relocation realtor. So if an executive is flying, like say for instance, they got a promotion, they move into a new city, they're buying a house, but the house is not going to be ready for another 30, 45 days. They need some place to stay. Normally when an executive moves, they take their whole family with them. So guess what? They can't stay in a hotel. They can't rent a house for, normally a landlord wants a year or 2-year lease, so they can't do that. So that's where we come in when it comes to a short-term rental. A relocation specialist, will hit us up and be like, hey, I got an executive that needs to stay from this date to this date. Do you have anything available? So we do that, and we don't necessarily have to go through Airbnb to do that. There's different platforms that you can use to do that. But I mean, Airbnb is cool because it's like, it has a lot of features that that a lot of other companies don't have. But yeah, you necessarily don't have to go through Airbnb to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, rental arbitrage is one part. So I do mainly co-hosting now, and that's what allowed me to go from, 3 properties to 23 properties in only like a few months. So co-hosting, a lot of your functions and responsibilities are somewhat the same. The difference is there's zero risk. So there is no like deposit, there's no lease. You're not paying the utilities that stays with the homeowner or the landlord. Um, all the expenses you can practically bill to that homeowner. So um, your fee, usually I tell people starting out, charge 30% fee. Um, your fee is basically 30% of the entire revenue, not the actual profit, but the entire revenue. So if that property makes $100,000 that year, that means your fee 30%, you make 30,000. So with that, what you're doing is you're actually partnering with that homeowner to split the profits, or it's not split the profits, it's split the revenue with them. So you're basically just kind of like being a property manager for that Airbnb rental. So you're doing all the same responsibilities. The only difference is that there is no risk to you, simply because you're not paying rent. There's no lease, there's no deposit, there's none of that.
Hmm.
So that's what we're doing right now, is mainly doing co-hosting. Even though we did form a new company where we're actually creating companies for people, which I'll actually talk about that later. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, with co-hosting, it's a lot simpler. There's no risk, so there's a lot less stress, because a lot of people are actually leaving the market because they're losing their properties. That means there's more opportunities for us. And I would say only about probably 5 to 10% of total Airbnb people are doing co-hosting. The rest of them are doing all rental arbitrage, which is why so many people are losing money right now. We're not losing money because everything is 100% profit, because we're not spending a single dime. So, um, we can
And
get
when
into
did
the
you switch
properties.
over to start co-hosting? Like, what made you? When did you go from rental arbitrage to co-hosting, and what made you decide to make that change and pivot?
I started doing co-hosting back in, I think it was like August or October, and it was mainly because I got tired of what shall I say? Um, hold on. I'll answer your question in just a second. Um,
Yeah.
but I got tired of, like, for one, I don't want to, like, let me be real. I'm a cheap investor, okay? So I want to spend as little money as possible and try to make as much as possible. So that's why I have the no money model, because that allows me to not spend any money whatsoever, but it allows me to actually maximize my profits by, not spending anything. And a lot of people don't know that when you're co-hosting, your profits, I mean, not your profits, but your revenue is almost the same as if you were actually doing rental arbitrage. So it's like, what's the point of doing rental arbitrage, putting all this money down and trying to furnish a place and all this other stuff, when you can go into co-hosting, not spend anything, and make the same amount of money? So it just made more sense. It just made more sense. So, and also, with co-hosting, you're doing a lot less work. You're doing a lot less work. It's like, I use a system that manages all my properties for me. And it's called Your Porter, and it does about 80% of the work. So, like, I'm technically only working about 1 or 2 hours a week on the business itself. The rest of the time is actually spent supporting people and putting out fires, basically, because that's what I've been doing. Like, ever since Trump decided to cut Europe off, that actually took away 30% of our revenue. And I'm just keeping it real. It took away like 30% of our revenue. So, because, like, when it comes to Atlanta and stuff like that, 30% of our market usually is Europeans coming here. So the rest is all domestic, which is completely fine. And since a lot of other people aren't traveling, we've had to go to other avenues to end up filling these units. So now we realize that there's a big need for travel nurses, medical professionals, and stuff like that. So I have a source that I go to basically get properties filled by finding travel nurses and stuff like that, because a lot of them can't stay in traditional Airbnb properties because they have check-in and check-out times. We don't have check-in and check-out times. We've waived them all. So if they decide they're coming into town and they're not going to be there until 12 a.m., we're going to make sure that they can get into that property at 12 a.m. So now, should I go ahead and answer this question over here?
Sure, go
Okay.
ahead.
So, Jasmine, no, these properties aren't paid off in full. Actually, a lot of them still have a mortgage on them.
Mhm.
The difference is I don't own the property. The only thing I'm doing is managing it. So it doesn't matter if it's paid off, it's not paid off. Your job is to manage it, and whatever the income that comes in for that property, you get 30% of that regardless. So even if it makes just $100 that month, you get $30. So it's like your job is to manage the property, and that's it.
How do you go about, and of course, you don't have to explain in full, but just a nutshell synopsis of how do you get an owner to agree? Like, were these owners already doing Airbnb, or is it something that you put something out there and then they're like, hey, I have this space? And because some people love the Airbnb platform. Some people
Mhm.
want to do other things outside of the platform. So how do you go about locking these properties up with the owners?
So the good thing, like I said, I'm a cheap investor and I'm also a lazy investor. Um, this is what made me get out of wholesaling is
Mhm.
cold calling.
Mhm.
So if it's one thing I hate is spending time on the phone with people who don't want to be on the phone with me. I do
Mhm.
not like that whatsoever. So I thought, you know what? Instead of me contacting people, what can I do to attract them to me? So since I took a copywriting class like years ago, um, I decided to write an ad on Craigslist. So I put it on Facebook, a while ago, but it's probably not up there because I took all my ads down because I'm like, I'm not trying to take on any more properties right now. Um, but I put an ad out there, and that's when I told you I got those responses when I was down in Atlanta. Somebody hit me up in 30 minutes, and then all of a sudden that same day, I ended up getting 30 phone calls. So I do this for everybody. Like when I was just down in Dallas recently, with some friends of mine, I put an ad out there on Craigslist for Dallas. And like literally that same day, I'm getting call after call after call, and I set up appointments for when we went down there to look at properties and pick some up. So it's like the ad itself works. Um, I've kind of slowed down on giving the ad to everybody because the one thing that I don't want to do is saturate the market with that same ad, because what will happen is if people see the same ad by multiple companies, they're going to get really skeptical of it. So, and it kind of messes up your branding too. So I did that, and it works. It works. Now, for certain markets, it may not work depending on where you are. For some reason, I've been having a big issue with Philly, um, but I'm gonna have to tweak it for that. But now we're at a point in time where people are going to be desperate. They're going to be desperate, and the top two people who are going to need housing are medical professionals and also people that are that are doing self quarantine, and that's mainly because they can't go home to their family. So if they find out that, hey, I got COVID-19, I need somewhere to go. So guess what? You're one of the first places they can go to because hotels are expensive. So so we are offering that to them, and of course, once they leave the property, we'll do a whole deep, clean and all that other stuff. Just throw bleach on the whole place. So
What
yeah,
markets are you currently working in?
say that again.
What markets are you currently working in?
So I got my place up in Minneapolis, here in Chicago, and also in Atlanta. So I was thinking about expanding to some more markets, but I'm gonna wait until things become a little bit more clear, because right now it's like really hectic. But right now, because people aren't, paying their rent and all that other stuff, I could probably lock up 20 properties in a week right now, simply because everybody's just like, I need income. But it's like, I don't want to do that because I'm doing something else right now with my partner where we're actually working on building businesses for people. So instead of just teaching people how to do this, we're actually building the business for them so that they don't have to go through all the work and that we had to go through in order to basically get the property up and running. We're actually doing that work for them. So just to basically make them more successful at it. So.
And what would you say doing the co-hosting was or is the startup costs on average? And when you say building the business, can you just give the key points of what someone would have to have in place in order to successfully do this?
Yes. Startup costs, zero. Just keep it real. Zero. I've acquired like so many properties where I didn't spend a single dime. The only thing I had to worry about was gas. So as far as like things you would need to have set up, I always recommend that you have an LLC or an S corp. And that's just to protect yourself, because if something happens in that property, although Airbnb does provide liability insurance, they do provide property damage as well. $1 million of property damage, $1 million in liability. They may not always cover that. So having yourself protected is really important, because if somebody were to slip and fall and hurt themselves and they sue you, guess what? You're personally liable. So that's one thing that I always recommend. Also having a website. Like, people don't realize how important that is to have a website. Seriously, like, one of the first questions that a lot of people tend to ask when I'm talking to homeowners is they'll ask at the end of the call, do you have a website or more information that I can see? And a lot of them won't move forward, because the thing is, they look at you as a legitimate business. So if you don't have a web presence, they're going to be like, okay, well, how am I supposed to take you serious when I can't even see anything about you? So having a simple website available that, I always send people to a website called Ionos or whatever. And it's like a hosting website. You get started for $1, get a free domain, build your website and all that other stuff. And it's only like $8 a month after that. So I got rid of GoDaddy because they nickel and dime you for everything. So I went with, Ionos, and, start out for $1 the first month. And after that, let me do that. So I just, I went there and got all my websites done. I actually have 2 websites. My new one, I put that one up, and I've been getting some good feedback from that one. But
put your websites in the chat for us.
Yes.
I've never checked them out. Well, not the new ones.
So yeah, that's my new site, and that's where I would just put that link on my ad and just have people go to that site. They fill out a form, because I don't like talking to people on the phone anymore. Like when I first started, all I did was I put my phone number out there, and my phone was ringing off the hook. I mean, when I say it was ringing off the hook, like nonstop all day. And I'm thinking, the initial excitement, I'm like, oh my God, I got all these people calling me. And then now it's like, okay, crap, this is too many. Like, I need my time. I became an entrepreneur because I don't want to work that much. So like, I'm on the phone all day. I'm like customer service in my own business. So, I created the website link so they can go online. You say, what? I can't see the name. This is the
I got you.
No, wait, the startup? Oh, wait. Okay, yeah. So, I forgot what I was about to say.
You were getting excited about the phone ring.
Yeah, right. And it became too much. It became too much to handle. So I decided to create a link for them to fill out a form, which I should have did from the beginning. That way I can qualify that property before I even speak to them. Because what I was doing is I was talking to people on the phone, I was giving them information, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you know what? Yeah, we probably wouldn't do that property. And that's the problem. Like, you're wasting time talking to all these people when you can qualify them over the phone. I mean, not over the phone, online, and just shoot them an email and say, if we do end up coming to your area, or, if we are interested in your property, we'll definitely be in contact. But, and that basically eliminated a lot of my, what should I say? Or freed up a lot of my time. So now a lot of my time is pretty much dedicated to supporting people, which is also a lot. Because people have questions all day, every day, and consider the fact that nobody's going to work. We got all this stuff going on. Everybody, Nick, what can I do? What can I do? And I'm like, ain't nobody traveling. I just talked to, one of my other clients, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and she's a nurse and she's in New
Mhm.
York. And she told me that there were only 5 people on her flight. 5 people on her flight. And she
That's
was like,
crazy.
ain't nobody flying nowhere but like
Mhm.
medical professionals and people that are like, doing essential services. So, and it's like there are places that are on lockdown, like on straight
Mhm.
lockdown. And like nobody's really going anywhere. So people are looking for different ways to actually increase their income. This is one of those ways, but starting out right now is going to be a lot more work simply because you really have to have those connections in place in order to really start profiting from it. So unless you know exactly what to do right now, it's going to be really hard for you unless you actually, you know, like a lot of nurses or something like that. Then if you know a lot of nurses and stuff like that, or you can get in contact with a bunch of nurses or travel agencies that have that does staffing for nurses, then you're ahead of the game.
Sounds good. Any what was I gonna say? Any things to watch out for or consider, let's say a couple months down the line, and everything goes back to normal, hopefully by my
Yeah, it ain't going back to normal anytime soon. It's not.
or a new normal where we can go outside,
Yeah.
do
So
what you want to do,
'cause
like go eat and stuff.
yeah,
What
'cause
would
what we're
you?
experiencing right now, we're not going to be able to recover from a lot of stuff that's going on right now.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of businesses are going to go out of business. There's going to be no recovery because by the time they can get a loan or anything like that, they're going to be shut down. It's going to be too late. Um,
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot of foreclosures. There's going to be a lot of evictions. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's happening because that little $1,200 that they sent it out ain't going to do nothing. It ain't
Mhm.
gonna do nothing. The average rent on my block is 1,500. So it's like there's no way that a lot of people are gonna be able to, they're just not gonna make it. They're not. And just keeping it real. And I'm trying to be optimistic, but looking at the way things went in the past, it's really gonna get worse. It's really gonna get worse. I have a friend who's actually stuck in another country in a Caribbean island right now, has no money. The Caribbean island is only off, and they've shut it down, so there means no flights in and out of that island. It's nice to be able to stay on an island, but it's not cool that you can't, you can no longer afford to stay where you are, and the government is only offering you $150 food voucher. That's it. It's like it's hell. It's hell, and we haven't seen the worst of this yet. And that's the one thing I have to say is we haven't seen the worst. And I predicted this was going to happen. I told people it was going to
Yes,
happen.
you did.
So
And you posted it on Facebook, and
I'm
I shared it.
and
And what
people,
is somebody was like, it doesn't mention the coronavirus.
it
And
doesn't.
let's kind of not talk about the coronavirus, but let's talk about that really quickly. What I was trying to share with somebody was it doesn't matter. A lot of people were speaking about, so the economy it has cycles, right? It's cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
We're going up. What goes up has to come back down, right?
Exactly.
It's not just going to go up and up and up and up. It even may plateau sometimes. It may go flat,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a cycle.
Yep.
So when Donald Trump became president, he rolled back different things like Dodd Frank.
Fast tracked it.
People could do uh, income stated loans. Some lenders, meaning, so back in the 80s and way back in the day, somebody could go to a lender. They couldn't necessarily look like us, but they could go to a lender and say, I make $100,000. I want to buy this building or property, and they
Mm-hmm.
would get a stated income loan.
No
So
coming
I
back.
think the roll back as far as real estate to open the floodgates up for some to be able to acquire property. And even with FHA saying, no, we're not taking a 580 anymore, we're taking a 640. But allowing those things to happen, all signs pointed to, although we're not there yet, a housing market crash. But signs were also pointing to, a correction, as you say, like
Yep.
these stocks are overvalued. The stock market is going to have a correction financially, and some people just were not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically that have like 401ks and different things like that. If you have a 401k, if your money is in any way invested in the stock market, you have to pay attention to what's going on in the world economy because it impacts your economy. So to your point, some people won't recover, some people weren't prepared.
Mhm.
I've even seen on social media, like, where are all these entrepreneurs that were balling out of control? What happened? But people were really living check to check or deal to deal. But when
Mhm.
it comes to the market, which you kind of touched on it, getting worse, would you say there were some indicators that you were aware of,
Yeah.
you could share, or things that people going forward just need to know to kind of pay attention to and look out for?
Yeah. One of the things that I paid attention to was the fact that there was what we call a false sense of liquidity. And that's basically where the Federal Reserve is pumping a bunch of money in the market. And it's, investors and corporations and stuff like that are using this money to buy back their stocks to make it look like there's a lot of liquidity. And what was happening is they were taking on a lot of debt too. Uh,
Mhm.
and they weren't saving anything. So that's why, like, companies like the airlines and stuff like that during Trump's take, what is it, TC, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act or something like that in 2017. The moment he put that into place, a lot of companies did not invest in their employees. They did not save any money. As a matter of fact, a lot of them, the airline industry actually took 96% of that money that they saved and they bought back stock. So
Mhm.
instead of basically saving money and putting cash aside, they bought back all their stock, and guess what? Now they ain't got no money. So
Mhm.
I was paying attention to all this stuff. Like, these companies are just like, they're taking on so much debt and stocks are overvalued by 80%. So sooner or later it's going to come down. And the moment he put that dog on or the moment they created that tax cut, I knew it was going to be all down here from there. But also looking at history, anytime, some people may not like what I'm about to say, but it's true and it's history. Anytime Republicans controlled all three branches of government, we had a crash. Every single time. Every single time they controlled all three branches of government, we had a crash. And that's because when it comes to fiscal policy, they suck because the only thing they focus on is the rich. Their job is to basically make the rich richer. So, they're not focused on a progressive agenda. They're not focused on even, middle class or poor. Like, even if you look at that stimulus bill right now, like, they're requiring like people with Social Security to file taxes, even though you don't have to receive that $12 stimulus check. It's like so many things that they're doing to basically prop up, corporations more and give them a free handout, because these companies are going to basically take those billions that they receive and probably turn it into trillions. Because this money, like, a lot of people don't know that they're saying, oh, these are loans that they're getting. No, if these companies retain their employees, those loans are going to be forgiven. So that means our children, our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren are going to be paying for this tax, this stimulus bill. So a lot of people don't look at that. They don't look at that. So I'm paying attention to all this stuff, and we're not done yet. We're not done yet. The fact that we've already given out 2 trillion to corporations back in 2017. Now we're about to give out another 2 trillion. Like, that debt is about to skyrocket. The deficit is about to skyrocket. And there's no way to recover from this. There's no way to recover. Like, we're about to go in so much debt that we're about to have a massive crash. And what we're seeing right now is nothing. What we're seeing right now is nothing. Of course, with Corona and all that, that's horrible. That's horrible. But what's going to happen in the future is we're going to have another trigger that's going to send these markets into a nosedive, and it's going to be all hell. I think what we're seeing right now is hell. It's going to be all hell in the future, even worse. So, way worse than 2008.
Lord, no, I agree though. I'm like, this is just a test of the emergency broadcast.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I told
The
people, a
big
lot of people.
shebang is yet to come, and people need to, that stimulus money, if you get it and you don't need it, keep saving, keep putting money away,
It's
and looking at ways to um make money, right? Make money. Try to stay right now as cash heavy as possible. and
Mhm.
kind of pivot back. A lot of people, and nothing against Airbnb strategies, but a lot of people, their Airbnb strategy is actually to purchase the property. Jasmine kind of touched on that. Is it free and clear? So they're purchasing a property, they're mortgaging the property,
Yeah,
they're
don't do that.
using the property that they've mortgaged for Airbnb, which is great. Airbnb has had a great run, and I see it, continuing on. Actually, I've been reading, I haven't fact checked, that Airbnb was actually created during the last crash back in 2008, or economic slump, right? I
Mhm.
don't want to use the word crash and scare
Yeah.
people, but there are a lot of people who now have these properties, and they have these mortgages, and they're over leveraged. And to the
Mhm.
point, few people are traveling. Great if you're in a Chicago market where we do have a lot of hospitals. If your Airbnb is in the right place and you know how to pivot and say, hey, traveling nurses or whatever, reaching out to the hospitals, doing whatever you have to do, staff and agencies. But I talk about how to use other people's money. Nick is literally doing that. Hey, property owner, you have other things going on. Let me help you help yourself. We make money together. But like Nick said, startup costs virtually zero, not
Zero.
taking on any debt, and not responsible for that mortgage payment, only really benefiting from the profit. So even if, or the revenue,
Yeah.
even if revenue is down, your overhead basically is non-existent, right?
Yeah.
Just some of the services or programs that you're using. So when we're thinking about real estate investing, even people that buy multi-units, I tell people, don't buy something that you can't imagine. None of your tenants pay rent. Can
Mhm.
you afford this property, right? That's how I approach things as a realtor. And even before I became a real estate agent, can you make the payment if the tenants don't?
Right.
A lot of people right now are over leveraged. They don't have the money. Tenants are, some of them are not going to pay rent. And depending on how long this thing goes, if we end up in the fall, winter, economically coming out of it, it'll be 2021 before they can be evicted, right? So when investing in real estate and choosing a strategy, you want to think about capacity and how you're leveraging and making sure you're not over leveraged, because to Nick's point, there will be quite a few foreclosures. And with this, crisis means opportunity and danger, right? So there are people who are going to take advantage of the opportunity. I hate to say it, but like there's profit in other people's pain, so to speak. But it's like if you need a solution, there are people like Nick, myself, other real estate investors and professionals that have a solution to help you stop the bleeding, right? We can't fix it, but we can definitely stop the bleeding. Anything, question for Nick? With traveling being nearly null and void, or you're reading it with no signs when it will change. Well, I'll read it for YouTube can't see this. So let me read the question. With traveling being nearly null and void, with no signs when it will change, do you believe that the education and Airbnb rentals are worthwhile, or just a restructure to how it's approached?
I would say a restructure. Simply because there's an opportunity there that presents itself where once again people like myself can come in and be a wolf. I'm just keeping it real. Because a lot of people are losing their properties, and the thing is these homeowners have gotten used to their properties being used as Airbnb rentals, but now that person who used to be there can no longer basically afford to pay them. So um, it's just basically all about restructuring or adapting. That's the one thing I always tell people is to learn to adapt and also look at, plan for the worst case scenario.
Mhm.
So that's why I got into co-hosting, because I wanted zero risk. The one thing I didn't want is me going to court multiple times a month for evictions. Like I refuse that. I refuse that. So, it's all about basically adapting and looking at the worst case scenario. So always plan to fail. Always plan to fail. Because a lot of times Murphy's Law comes into effect. And that's exactly what happened now is I told people, prepare, prepare. And people didn't listen. They didn't listen, and look what's happening now. And my thing is, I'm trying to figure out, it's March, and people are waiting on this stimulus check, and I'm like, what you do with your tax returns? Seriously, you got a few thousand back. What you do with all that money? So I didn't get no tax return. I ain't got no tax return since like 2013. So
I haven't even filed my taxes yet. I'm so glad that they extended it because when you're business, it's a lot of paperwork that we have to, usually get in order to sit down with a tax professional.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and right in 2018, I didn't get a tax return either. And from a business standpoint, so what's interesting now is I saw something, I have to read it, but it's like, what if as a business, you had a loss and you didn't show that you made any money? Like, will that impact some of the things with the CARES Act? And then some of the gig workers, rideshare workers, I don't think some people realize, like, for that unemployment benefit, you have to have done your taxes. Like, they have to be able
2019
that you made an income. So whether it was because we got an extension for 2019, you at least had to do 2018 taxes. And some of us don't do our taxes or literally write everything off, but at least having them done. Yeah. But to Nick's point, Airbnb is not going to completely go away. And what's interesting is the hotels are struggling as well. So hotels are not getting the, what am I trying to say? Not occupants, travelers, because people aren't traveling, right? But some of the hotels have been around forever, so they're kind of in a better position. People will start to travel again. I prefer staying in houses as opposed to hotel rooms or condos.
Yeah, because hotels are accessible.
So Airbnb will continue to have a place. But like Nick said, the whole restructuring of it, and even some owners who only bought for Airbnb purposes, they may need to restructure if they can cover the mortgage. And people, here's the other thing that we didn't mention, right? So a lot of people say Trump is not a good businessman because he's filed bankruptcy. If the person that Nick is talking about that has the 100 properties, if it was done right and it's all under the business can be bankrupted, the business can be closed, a new business can be started, and there's nothing on his personal credit, personal record to prevent him from starting another business and doing something else, right? Sometimes we mess up, and Nick mentioned having an LLC S corp. So I want to stress that the idea, it's important to have a business and operate under a business because you're able to separate yourself, that personal liability, from the business, right? Yep. So we want to run things properly, which is why Nick is helping people set their businesses up before they get involved in whether it's Airbnb, any type of investing. Even as a real estate agent, I'm having the broker pay my business. Like, I'm switching up the way that I do things. So I'm even operating as a business within a business. So want to stress that, right? Because I can bankrupt a business and start another business. But if I bankrupt and try to use my own name and credit, then there's going to be an issue.
Yep. Oh, and one of the things
go ahead.
When it comes to your business entity as well, a lot of people think that you're protected if you just have a plain LLC. There's actually multiple types of LLCs. If a single member LLC, the IRS looks at that just like if you were doing a 1040. So having a multi-member protects you more than a single member, because a single member, you can still be personally liable for certain things. So none of my LLCs are single member, and all of my LLCs are actually owned by an S corp. So it's like there's like multiple layers of protection. Just like my house I'm in right now, Like my name isn't even on this house. It's actually under a trust. So it's like can't nobody touch me. So forget that. Something happened.
Control everything, own nothing,
Yep.
right? So when it comes to real estate investors, one last piece of advice or any nugget that you want to give.
Um, I would say don't be afraid to take risks. When I
Mhm.
came here to Chicago, I literally came here with like 500 bucks in my pocket on a challenge, on a challenge. And within a short period of time, I built a business, I bought a house with nothing. I still haven't paid a mortgage yet. I don't have to pay a mortgage until October. So it's like it's absolutely nuts the stuff that I've been able to accomplish since being here. And from the time I've been here, I've ended up getting what? Let's say I started off with uh, yeah, I got like 20, 21, 22 properties ever since I moved to Chicago. So it's like it's something else. It's something else. So don't be afraid to take risks. And hopefully sooner or later we'll all come off punishment. Because I swear to God, I can't wait to tell my grandchildren like back in my day, we got on the whole world got put on punishment and we didn't do nothing. So, but, but I
We had virtual parties.
know like we got put on punishment. So Jasmine, yes, I would what I would say I do create my own LLC, but when it comes to any tax advice or anything like that, I always consult a professional. Always. So it's very easy to set up an LLC. The most important thing though is getting a professional to go over your like your operating agreement and stuff like that because that's going to be between you and your partner if you have one. Um, but the good thing about it is that if you have multiple LLCs, one of your other LLCs can be a part owner in that company. So
Mm.
a lot of people don't know that. They think you have to actually have another person. It could be another entity. So, um, but yeah, definitely take risks. But make sure they're calculated. Like you got to
Mhm.
dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure you pay attention to everything. Pay attention to everything, and never stop learning. That's the one thing I can tell people. Like even when it comes to Airbnb and it's investing, I'm learning every single day about new stuff. I'm learning every single day. You never stop learning until you die. So definitely get out there. And also, of course, I might be getting back into selling in the future, considering that there's going to be a lot of foreclosures. There's going to be a lot. So that market is going to it's going to be filled with foreclosures. So I'm be getting back into that. Just not anytime soon because I'm going on vacation. As soon as this ban and all this other stuff is lifted, I'm leaving the country for like 6 months to get that. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick, for taking time out. I know you are a busy man, so I
yes.
appreciate you taking time out to join me and share some nuggets and jewels. I took notes as I always do. And just to highlight a few things that you said, Nick mentioned adapting and being fluid so you can flow with the market. He uses Craigslist ads. He took a copywriting class. I paid attention to that. That's a huge major thing. And that's an opportunity too for people to make money. Some people are looking for copywriters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he does co-hosting as opposed to rental arbitrage, just to recap really quickly. So startup costs, overhead costs is virtually nothing, if anything at all. And he's still able to generate revenue even during this time with Airbnb because he's been able to pivot and has the right network and connections to um, target the right market for
Yep.
who needs Airbnb right now, which is traveling medical professionals and individuals who are self quarantining. So I am Jamesia Jonay. Thank you again, Nick. Everyone have a great day. You can go to Nick's website, Cooper Investments Group LLC. And Nick is also on Facebook, Nick Nick, Cooper COOPER. If you're thinking about the Airbnb business and you want to utilize him and his services to help you get everything set up. So when we get off punishment, you're ready to hit the ground running, right?
Exactly. You'll be one of the first
I'll
people
have
out there that's ready to go.
yes. Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.